Now, tomorrow is World Blood Donor Day, and ordinarily I'd be lining up to make a donation and give away my usual pint, but because I've recently had surgery, I'm excluded from donating for a couple of weeks. So I thought the next best thing I can do to mark the day is to ask you to please consider donating and to remind you of why it's so important. Instead of taking a look at the nuts and bolts of how to donate and where to donate and how often, etc., I thought let's share with you the impact it can have. Because with us via Zoom this afternoon is someone whose life was saved by blood transfusions. His name is Tristan Kelly, and he's got one heck of a story to share with us about how he came to need that blood in the first place. Let's find out more as we welcome Tristan to the show. Thank you so much for joining us, Tristan. Good to chat to you.
Hi, Pippa. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. And yourself?
Good. Thanks for having me on the air. Thanks to your listeners.
It's a great pleasure to have you. Thank you for your time. Tristan, let's just talk a little bit about yourself before the incident that was such an incredible change of direction for your life. You are local, you work in the motor industry, you're a family man. Tell us a bit more.
Yeah, I'm fairly young, 43 years old. I listen to your show quite often, so cool. quite exciting, to be honest. I'm quite a fit guy, but I think I'm a fit guy. And I run a Ford dealership in Somerset West. Some of you might know it, Kelford's. And big family man. I've got two kids, two daughters, and a beautiful wife called Carla.
Okay, thanks for setting the scene. And I'm asking you to do that because it's quite relevant to the experience that we're going to be talking about today, because it was actually during a family holiday up in the bush in the Kruger area that this incident happened that we want to talk to you about today. Take us back to that day in December 2021. I believe you were in camp walking with your daughter when the unexpected happened. Do you want to set the scene for us?
Yeah, I think I'll go a little bit further back. It was our wedding anniversary, and my wife and I generally find any excuse to go to the bush. So
as if you need one.
Yeah. So this year, 2021 December, we took my kids. Probably not the best idea at the time, but we thought it'd be a great 3 or 4 nights away. And it was the Timbavati area near Kruger, which you've mentioned. It was a beautiful day, very early morning game drive. Low felt sunrise, and saw some lovely game on that morning. It was very warm.
Yeah.
And we arrived back at camp. It was an unfenced camp, which many are.
Yeah.
And my 6-year-old daughter was hassling me to go for a swim before breakfast. So I said, quickly, put your cozy on, let's go. And we walked out our stoop onto a little dirt path. And on my right side, there was an Inyala bull just grazing under a tree. He looked up, he acknowledged us, and he continued grazing. Now, fortunately, my daughter was also on my left-hand side at that time. And for those who don't know Inyala bulls, they're quite temperamental, very aggressive if testosterone is high, and I've only obviously learned that over time.
Yeah.
But if you know a personal hunter or a guide for that matter, they'll tell you a lot about the Inyala. And again, that's probably a story for another time. But anyway, back to the story. The animal, or the Inyala, looked up, acknowledged us, and we decided to keep walking because he was carrying grazing. And the next minute, basically within seconds, I turned to my right side, and I had quite a big male charging towards me. I didn't have much time. The one horn went straight through my right calf muscle.
Wow. And
instinctively, I threw my daughter into the bush behind me. So poor little girl got a few thorns in her, but she avoided that situation.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had a little bit of a tussle with the Inyala. After having a horn through my leg, I grabbed its horns, but it made me feel like a feather.
Sure.
It literally pushed me into the bush, head down, and I ended up lying down inside next to a thorn bush, and it turned, walked away, and came back a second time, this time with its head low down, and another horn hit me in the groin muscle, which felt like a ton of bricks. It was a pretty fatal hit at that moment. I kind of knew it as well, but, your adrenaline's pumping and all the rest. Luckily and unluckily, my wife was watching the whole episode with my 8-year-old daughter on the balcony. And before it came for the third time, she jumped off the balcony, waved her arms in the air, and made herself as big as possible, as loud as possible. And then Yala eventually turned and walked away.
Sure.
So this is when the panic really kicked in, and my wife managed to get me off the dirt path onto the balcony. And obviously help came from everywhere around the camp. The lodge, unfortunately, were ill-equipped for a situation like this because it was a bit hectic. But very fortunately, on the game car behind us, there were 2 doctors.
Sure.
One was a GP, one was a vet. And they both came to assess. One grabbed my leg, sprayed a bit of saline through the hole in the leg just to clean out any dirt. And the other doctor grabbed my stomach and assessed it and couldn't really pick up any sort of issue from the outside. But that's kind of when the trouble began. So at that moment, I kind of knew that something wasn't right. And I had a feeling that I was not going to make it at that time.
Sure.
So I grabbed my wife's phone. I quickly said to her, give me your phone. I did a quick video call to my daughters just to basically keep them calm and say, Daddy's all cool and don't worry, we'll see you soon, all the rest. Didn't last more than 20 or 30 seconds. I couldn't really handle it, but that was probably the last time I kind of remember being conscious.
Sure.
The next thing that happened was obviously I had to make a decision if I needed to be helivacked or put in an ambulance because the local Tsenin hospital was about an hour away. And I think they took the decision to put me in an ambulance because the nearest helivac helicopter was in Nelspruit. Anyway, they picked me up by ambulance. It was the quickest route. I arrived at hospital a little bit dazed and unconscious. And I think the last thing I remember was one of the surgeons asking me if I was a serious athlete, and as my heart rate was very low, I said yes, and I think I fell asleep for another 7 days from that moment onwards.
Sure.
So the story from here is what was told to me in reports, but that's the important part for this discussion. The doctor at the time, his name was Gert. I'm friends with him now because I think he had a lot to do with saving my life. He did a scope, picked up over a liter of blood at least inside my stomach. They decided to open me up and remove all the intestines and everything to try and find where the issue was, the bleeding internally.
Yeah.
And they worked out the horn had penetrated through my groin, up through the stomach, cut through the iliac vein, and basically through the psoas muscle into the 10th rib. That was a hell of a gash. Unfortunately, the Mediclinic at Tsenin didn't have the technology to repair the vein because that was where the bleeding was come from, the iliac vein. And if you know the iliac vein, you'll know the iliac artery. So it's millimeters away. If it had hit the artery a minute, I would have been history. But correct. So I was very lucky there. And the doctor he couldn't fix, so the only way to restrict the bleeding or to stop it was to put 9 surgical swabs over the area. And then what they do is they put a vacuum dressing over my body. It's almost like a Glad wrap. They wrap your body up so tight that you won't bleed. Anyway, while arranging that, they had to try and get me to Mill Park Hospital by helivac. And unfortunately, the weather didn't play ball at the time. There were major thunderstorms in that area, which they get in that time of year. And they had to delay it and keep me overnight. Now, that was the hard part because of the continuous bleeding or the temporary bleeding, but it wasn't going to stop. So this is where the transfusions came in. And I quote, which I think I'm correct, I was given 5 units of packed red blood cells, 5 units of FFP, which is fresh frozen plasma, and then 6 units of cryoseparate, which is like a blood portion that reduces the clotting.
So 16 16 portions of blood product, 16 people's donations helped keep you alive.
That was 16 units at the time.
Yep.
So the next morning, they started again with the transfusions, another 2 units of the red blood cells, another 2 more units of the fresh frozen plasma, as well as platelets. Anyway, the thunderstorms continued, and they wanted to put me into an ambulance, get me to Mill Park as quickly as possible, which I think was about 4 or 5 hours away. But this was very risky. It wasn't recommended, but they didn't have a choice. I think it was about 10 minutes before they were going to load me onto the ambulance. The clouds opened for some reason, and Netstar Helivac landed. And I think that was the moment that my wife was waiting for. I think she was going through hell until that moment.
Sure.
And I was loaded. I think it was 45 minutes to Mill Park, somewhere around there. And they at Mill Park had been prepped well by the doctors, and I think I went into another 10-hour operation in the theatre room where, once again, a lot of low blood levels. Surgeons really doubted that I was going to survive the whole ordeal. I don't have the numbers or the facts in terms of how much transfusions I've had or how many units of blood, but there were a lot. It wasn't in my report, although I have a 270-page report from Mill Park.
Wow.
I didn't get the exact details. So that they did that successfully. They sewed up the iliac vein and got me under control. I think it was about 7 days later, I woke up, got off the vents, and I think it was Christmas Eve, I think I fought very hard to get out of that hospital as quickly as I could, which was probably a little bit too early. And from there, yeah, it's been a journey.
Sure, what a story. I mean, Tristan, as we speak, are you back, sort of restored to full health? Have you been able to go back to sport at the level you were participating in, for example, before this happened?
Yes and no. I mean, it's, when something happens like this to you, you realize that you don't need to do what you used to do. Don't sweat the small things. You look at everything totally differently, And I think one thing I did do immediately after my accident is I actually felt very guilty about how much blood I took from the blood bank. And that's when I contacted the Western Cape Blood Services. I told them the story, and they were very interested. And I asked if I could host a donation day at my dealership, Calford's. And the support was amazing that I got from friends and family and staff. I think we got 100 units of blood in our very first donation.
Amazing.
Which was great. And then because it went so well, I said, well, I might as well start doing this more regularly. And I think today we've done about 13, donations. And I'm on average, I would say between 30 and 40 pints a day. So I've definitely made my quota back from my accident, but I don't think I'll stop either, because it's a nice feeling,
Yeah.
And if I look back at what happened, I didn't give you the full story afterwards. I've had 13 operations since that day. I've had robotic surgery, I've had stents removed and all the rest. But to answer your question, I am back on my feet. And I swim every day. I don't run or cycle like I used to, but I swim every day and I keep super fit. And when I can donate, if I'm not in a malaria area, or if I haven't had an operation, or, if the iron levels are right, I will donate blood. Unfortunately, I've only been able to donate 3 times since the accident because of all the things that have happened in between. But the goal is 50. I'll get there one day. Mm-hmm.
So,
and I'll keep going.
Were you a blood donor before this, Tristan, or is it something that's happened directly as a result of the incident?
It's only happened since the incident. I was too scared. I was frightened of needles, and I remember my dad saying, "We used to get a pint of beer for a pint of blood." Back in the day.
Imagine that.
I don't know how they got away with it, but but yes, it's I'm now a donor because of the incident.
Well, as Cheryl remarks on our WhatsApp, what a remarkable account of the injury and the blood transfusions. I sincerely hope that non-blood donors are listening and will be moved to go out and make the change. Cheryl, thank you. Here. That's the whole reason for doing this interview. It's amazing. You donate personally when you can, but when you can't, you've done this incredible work rallying others to do the same. And Tristan, as a result of it, other lives out there somewhere are being saved by those donations. I mean, I can't think of a better illustration of why we encourage people to donate blood, because it could be your brother, husband, son, or loved one who is the next Tristan needing those products, and you would want them to have access to them as he did that very long night in the hospital in Zanin. Tristan, I mean, what a remarkable story. I've just come back from the bush a week ago, and there was a nyala grazing outside the camp I was walking around. I never gave it a second thought, and it's been an important reminder also that wild animals do remain wild even when they move into human spaces. So thank you for that part of the story as well. But most importantly, we're so glad to hear that you are back on your feet and back with your family and able to enjoy the second chance that you've been given. Thanks for taking the time to share it with us today.
Thanks, Pippa. Appreciate it. Appreciate the time.
And all the best to you. What a story. Tristan Kelly chatting to us there, recipient of multiple units of blood in the course of recovering from that incident in December 2021. And I just want to finish by saying that the reminder is that tomorrow is World Blood Donor Day, but of course every day is a potential blood donor day. So if you've never given before, please consider doing it for the first time tomorrow. And if you haven't done it in a while and needed this reminder, well, I hope it's jerked you back into action. If you don't know where to go, first place to visit is the Western Cape Blood Service website, which is wcbs.org.za. All the information you need is there on who can donate, under what stories, when you're prohibited from donating for a short time, etc. All the info is there. Most importantly, the calendar of where their blood donor clinics will be on what dates is also there. And if you can't find a caravan that's coming into your area convenient, then please consider one of the fixed donation site clinics, which are also listed on that website. But I'll just remind you that there is a permanent blood donation site at N1 City Mall, at 9 Long Street, at Blue Route Mall, Kenilworth Centre, Cape Gate, and Somerset Mall. More information on wcbs.org.za.